He's back with his new podcast series. Chris Hagan is not dead yet.
Hello, and welcome back to Not Dead Yet. Now, what do I want to talk about in this episode? Obviously, something a bit crazy. Not crazy, but something that people are chatting about. For example, on Loose Women. Those amazing women sitting around a table in the UK, laughing and joking and fighting over, I don't know, what flavour biscuits are the best. But today, I want to talk about dinkwads. Now that sounds like something that should be in my latest book, Cocks and Pussies of Indonesia, but it's not, surprise, surprise. It does sound quite dirty though, quite pervy. Dinkwad. I'm not going to explain why it sounds pervy, but I'm sure you can figure it out. Now this is not a noise your printer just makes when it's broken. Dinkwad. Although honestly, quite close, but dual income, no kids with a dog is what it actually stands for. So we're talking about people who have 2 incomes in the family, decide not to have kids, but have a dog. Dual income, no kids with a dog. Or I'm guessing any other kind of pet. And so before anyone gets defensive, this isn't one type of couple, it's everyone. Married, not married, queer, straight, non-binary, long-term, short-term. We're just seeing how it goes, and we accidentally bought a sofa together, so now we're legally bound. So why not get a dog to sit on the sofa? And shit on the sofa. Hopefully not the second one. So yeah, 2 adults, 2 incomes, 1 dog. And a shared sense of mild confusion about how we all got there. Now, you know what's interesting? No one ever sat us down and said, by the way, adulthood is going to look nothing like the brochure. In fact, can you remember? I mean, it depends how old you are now. But can you remember when you were younger at school thinking, God, I'm never going to be an adult. And then you arrive there and think, I feel the same. I don't feel any different from when I was at school. Yeah. And we were sold this idea that life moved in neat stages. Okay. But it's actually more like a streaming service algorithm that's gone rogue. Gone crazy. You watch one documentary about sourdough, so here's a true crime series, a wellness podcast, and a dog. And honestly, that tracks. The dog, by the way, is not just a dog. The dog is the centre of the household, the reason you can't go out tonight, and the most emotionally sensitive being in the room. When you come home, they're always there. Even if you come out of the kitchen, come back from the kitchen, they're there like, oh, where have you been? Like a little puppy. How cute. And you'll actually cancel plans and say very seriously, he's had a big day, he's tired, he can't go out. Here's a dog. And I'm surrounded by Muslims who don't want to have a dog. I'm trying to convince people to have a dog. Dogs are cute. Depends on the dog, to be honest. So a big day for the dog means like he saw another dog, or he heard a noise, there were some fireworks, or he felt a vibe he didn't care for and so cowered under the table. But nobody questions it because we all know dogs are important. Now, somewhere in Pennsylvania, there is a girl called Milk. Now, I think I spoke about this sometime, somewhere, I don't remember where. But Milk is not a dog. Milk is a human, and Milk thinks she is a Pomeranian. I don't know how this information found me, but it did. And once it's in your brain, it never leaves. Milk is a dog. She wears Pomeranian-style outfits. She behaves like a Pomeranian, and she lives her truth as a fluffy, emotionally expressive being in Pennsylvania. And how does that work? What would she be? A minkwad? No, because dual income. If you're already a dog and you're not a human, and you have a dog as well, what would the acronym for you be? Whoa, see if you can figure that out, because I can't. So yeah, so this is what the whole thing Dinkwad is really about. No children, but a choice. Saying, no, I prefer to have a dog instead of children. It's better, it's nicer, still as bloody expensive. Now, speaking of dogs, there is a dog in a series that I've just watched on Netflix, and it's called Run Away. No spoilers, don't worry, but it's a really, really good British show where everyone looks slightly tired, very real, and like they're carrying something unsaid. And in fact, they are. Even in the very last 2 minutes of the episode, I was like, what? And the whole thing hums with this question. Am I choosing this life, or am I just continuing it because stopping feels harder? Because it's talking about drugs inside. There's people who discover that somebody is their daughter, Not daughter, the daughter of somebody they were dating, etc., etc. But like I said, no spoilers, but it's a really good watch. And it's really, really good to watch. Like I said, it's really, really good to watch. And since Christmas and watching basically every series on Netflix, I was very happy when this arrived yesterday. The problem was I've already watched the whole series. Now, being a dinkwad isn't about running away from anything. It's more like gently stepping sideways while everyone else is marching forward and thinking, this is actually quite nice over here. The freedom is subtle but powerful. You can eat dinner at strange times. You can move countries. You can change careers. You can sit in silence and no one asks you to do anything for at least 10 minutes. And yet, the tiredness remains. The only thing I don't like is when people take dogs into restaurants. I think that's quite disgusting. Don't care how clean your dog is, it's an animal. Shouldn't be in a restaurant. Would you be happy if I brought a pet rat into the restaurant? I'm speaking to my Italian friends. Yeah, and people say, but where are you tired from? From life, from emails, from thinking, from deciding what's for dinner again? Yeah. Also from whisper arguing in the kitchen because the dog can sense conflict and you don't want to upset the dog. The dog has feelings too. Now, why is he sleeping on your side of the bed? Because you moved. I moved because he moved. And now the dog is stressed and somehow this is your fault. I'm speaking from experience here. I used to have a dog many, many years ago. Now, people regret everything in every direction. Having kids, not having kids. Staying, leaving, settling, not settling. At least now, some people are being honest enough to say, I'm choosing this, consciously. Dogs over kids. Like Milk. Milk didn't drift into being a Pomeranian. Milk committed. And maybe that's the real shift. Not running away, not opting out, but opting in to a life that fits you. With a partner or partners, with a dog, with no dog, with a human in Pennsylvania dressed as a Pomeranian doing absolutely no harm. The script changed, we're all improvising, and if you ask me, as long as everyone's fed, mostly kind, and allowed to be themselves, even if that self is Milk the Pomeranian, we're probably doing alright. Now, something else I want to talk about is there's a bit of a dilemma, a bit of a discussion in the UK about a new UK drama coming out about Hugh Edwards, the once trusted BBC news anchor whose fall from grace became one of the biggest media scandals in recent British broadcasting history. The show's being made for Channel 5 under the working title Power, The Downfall of Hugh Edwards. And Martin Clunes, yes, Doc Martin himself, is playing the role of Edwards. Now, if you're tuning in from outside the UK, here's the context without getting into legal detail. Don't want to end up in trouble now, do we? Now, Hugh Edwards was a hugely familiar face on TV for decades, reading the 10 o'clock news, fronting major royal and national stories. Then, in 2024, he pleaded guilty to making indecent images of children and received a suspended sentence, ending his career, obviously, and destroying his reputation virtually overnight. So, that leads to the obvious question. Is it too soon? Because honestly, it doesn't take much scrolling on the socials to see people absolutely divided. Some say, yes, this is morbid, exploitative, and gives oxygen to a man whose actions were abhorrent. Others argue that serious scandals are part of the cultural conversation and that dramatising them can help unpack how power and trust get abused. And both sides have a point. On the one hand, drama series, especially ones billed as factual dramatisations, walk this tricky line between storytelling, journalism and public accountability. They're not neutral, they shape how we remember events, especially when the subject was such a high-profile broadcaster like Hugh Edwards. It's one thing to read headlines, it's another thing to watch a charismatic actor reenact difficult scenes in your living room. On the other hand, there's a case to be made that we don't get to decide what stories are told and when. The industry is already making content about all sorts of scandals and audiences binge it, debate it, meme it and move on. But by adapting real events so quickly after the legal process and the public fallout, the show inevitably raises the question, are we processing this collective trauma or are we commodifying it? I mean, we just talked about Runaway and the humanity in that show. People reflecting on who they are, what choices they made. Here, you have a very public figure whose choices had devastating effects on real people. And suddenly it's being turned into primetime drama. Is that collective processing or narrative spectacle? And let's be real. A lot of viewers are uncomfortable because there's actual people involved in this. Victims, families, former colleagues, communities. And this series arrives when the wounds are still literally being dressed in public. So my question is it too soon? Maybe, probably, but that's the weird place we live in now. It's a bit like when you watch someone bail on a life milestone and suddenly everyone's making art about it before the dust has even settled. Yeah, it's fascinating, disturbing, riveting, and sometimes embarrassing all at once. And if there's one thread that connects this, the dinkwad life, Runaway, and the Hugh Edwards drama, it's this. We're all trying to figure out how to talk about real lives in real time without losing our humanity, or at least without making everything a spectacle.